So we have Georgeana here on the podcast today. Georgeana, so you moved to Dubai about a year ago now. So tell us, how was your first year in Dubai?
Well, if I'm going to describe it in one word, I'd say it's been a whirlwind. No, it's been amazing. It's been probably the best decision that I made. And if anything, I wish I'd done it sooner, but I didn't. So yeah, coming up to a year in June, and it's been, don't get me wrong, there has been tough moments and moments of laughter, moments of tears, moments of happiness, but it has been overall a really good experience.
Just sounds like a typical recruitment job though. Nothing to do with Dubai.
Yeah, basically.
So how have you found kind of moving here? Obviously, I've mostly had like business owners on the podcast. A lot of them have probably lived here for quite a while as well, so far. So considering that, you know, a lot of our listeners are recruiters who are thinking about moving here, perhaps from the UK or Ireland or anywhere else in the world. How have you found kind of the more, I guess, social side of moving here? How have you found kind of living here? What's life been like for you outside of work?
I think when it comes to relocation, the job is one thing, right? And everybody wants the perfect role and the perfect environment and culture, because that's your life basically, that you're relocating for that role. But the reality is there's so much more to it. Like you said, you've got the social aspect, you've got the making friends, you've got the missing home. And I think that when you do come over here, once you've secured that role, it's a case of actually settling in and finding what's right for you. So I'd say it took me at least 6 months to actually settle in, realistically. And that be in sort of my personal life rather than my career. I think, you know, it's, you kind of know when it comes to your job, what you want to do and what path you want to take. But when it actually comes to the relocation side of things from a personal perspective, there's so much to consider that people don't think about. And it's been I wouldn't say easy transition, but it's quite a positive transition.
Yeah.
You know, being able to make friends, make a new friendship group, you leave people behind. So you've got now a new support network, a new social life, a new place to go for dinner, for drinks, for activities, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that, you know, finding it easy would probably be the wrong word, but exciting is probably the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I do think Dubai, I have moved around myself quite a bit. I've lived in America, I've lived in London. I'm originally from Poland. So like this move was honestly nothing for me, apart from the fact that I was obviously trying to start a business here. But I think what I've really found great about Dubai was how easy it is to actually make friends and make friendship groups for people, not just for girls as well. I think it's a lot easier for men to find friends out here, which I think it could be quite challenging for people in general. Like say if you're moving from Manchester to London, for example, and you need to find new friends. I feel like it's so easy. Everyone's so open. Everyone's always open to kind of like making a new friend or inviting you out with their friends, and then suddenly look, you've got too many friends after living here for a few months, and you kind of need to strip it back and be like, actually I kind of need to just stay at home and like go to the gym and focus on myself a bit more rather than just being out all the time meeting people. Did you find that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that when you get here, everybody knows somebody who lives here or somebody they can introduce you to, and people are more friendly to do that. I remember when I first got here, people were like, what are you into? What do you like doing? Oh, I can put you in contact with this person, or I can put you in contact with that person, or why don't you try this, or why don't you try that, from a social point of view and a friendship point of view. And like you said, you do get to the point where you're like, I haven't got enough days in the week to see all these people. And then you kind of establish then in your mind, you know, what you want out of life as well. Because when you get here, obviously there is that buzz to go out and do everything, and there's so much temptation as well because you're new to the region, you're new to Dubai, you're new to the lifestyle, which is, you know, inevitably a lot of brunching and socializing and things like that. And to be honest with you, and we can go on to this shortly, but when you first get here, it does become a bit consuming, and you get into a lifestyle and a bit of a habit which you're not used to, going out maybe 3 to 4 times a week. And you've got to do it in the first place essentially to actually meet people, because that's how you meet your friends and start socializing. But realistically, it's knowing what the boundaries are and when to stop and what's right for you, really.
Yeah, I always kind of say that to my candidates, just be like, look, just focus on your job. That should be your number one priority, because I see it a lot as a rec here, where people come and maybe they just party a little bit too much and focus a little bit too little on their job, or have people over all the time from back home and they're constantly on holiday, when actually, you know, it is a tough region to recruit in, and it's probably good to move like you did in the summer, for example, where there isn't as much to do and you kind of are stuck in doing your job because there's nothing better to do.
I still managed to find time to go out. But
yeah, brunches.
Yeah, I think as well, it's a case of, if you know people out here as well, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier because they're already in a situation where they're in their routine and they've got their lifestyle here. They're not going to want to go out, you know, every night of the week. But at the same time, a lot of people move over here blind and don't know anybody. Yeah. And there is that temptation. And I must admit, you know, I did it. I probably for the first 3 months, I wouldn't say I went hard, but I went out more than I probably should have. Yeah. And a lot of people as well, when we talk about coming over here, it's important to make sure you've got savings behind you and a little, you know, a pocket for a rainy day or whatever you call it, to actually be able to fall back on. Yeah. And it's very easy to burn through your savings.
Oh my God, yeah. All the deposits that you have to put down on everything.
Exactly.
So you basically have a choice here between going into short-term accommodation where you don't have to put a deposit and it's all furnished and all paid for and your bills and everything, but you're basically paying almost double probably than what you've been paying if you got a long-term apartment, but then you've got to put down a deposit and you've got to pay your rent 3 or 6 months in advance, and same for like the bills, for DIWA, for the gas, and it just adds up so quickly, and then you kind of sit there, you're just like, oh my God, where did all my money go?
Exactly.
But it is kind of like a long-term saving, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's a short-term problem initially as well when it comes to moving over here. Once you get into the rhythm of your 6 months checks or your 3 months checks, whatever it may be, it's quite easy. But at that initial point when you have to pay, you know, a couple £1,000 up front is what you're talking. If you want to take out a long-term lease, then you have to be mindful of what you're spending your money on and how much savings you've got and how you're going about your finances as well. Especially if you don't have, you know, a lot of people come over here maybe more established in their career with families, etc., and they've got a family home in the UK which they can rent out, or a property. But if you're not in that situation and you are maybe slightly younger, looking to relocate here, you're not going to always have that financial backing.
What would you say as like a minimum someone would need to move here?
I'd probably say at least, if not more, 3 months salary. So you're probably talking a couple of thousand to actually be able to relocate here in savings. I would say like
minimum £5,000, ideally 10, to actually be comfortable and like not worry about anything for the next kind of like 6 months.
Exactly.
Whilst you kind of establishing yourself in this market, because it is a tough market to recruit and it is different. The clients are different, the candidates are different, the culture is different. So how have you found kind of making that switch from recruiting in the UK to recruiting here in the GCC?
To be honest with you, when I was in the UK, I was a contract recruiter. So obviously everything was very fast paced. I did a very niche market, and I'm still doing that market now, but it's a bit more broad. So I was a financial crime recruiter in the UK for contract. And when I moved over here, all of a sudden I'm a perm recruiter covering the wider sort of governance, risk and compliance piece, which includes financial crime. So it's still very close to what I was doing, and it hasn't been a massive transition in terms of market, but it has been in terms of client base. Yeah. So obviously trying to navigate my way through new relationships and understanding how things work in the UAE and the wider GCC has been sort of a learning curve. You know, a lot of my clients in the UK I would bring on through obviously business development, but a lot of it was phone based because I was an associate recruiter or associate consultant at the time of COVID. So there wasn't really that face-to-face interaction. It was when everything was very remote working. And that's another thing to point out as well. The region isn't as remote working friendly as the UK, which is where, you know, I know recruiters in the UK who are 100% remote.
It's awful though. Like you're not moving to Dubai to sit at home.
No.
Like you're literally not. Like why would you do that to yourself?
Exactly. And I think as well, where the client base is so face to face, when you speak to new prospects or new businesses that you want to work with, you have to see them in person. You have to build that relationship. It's a bit of a non-negotiable. So there is more of a face-to-face sort of presence here. So that was probably one of the biggest adjustments, was actually going on those client meetings. But it was also exciting, you know, going down to DIFC. It's a fun place to be. Yeah. There's a lot going on there. It's a bit like a mini version of Canary Wharf. So it is exciting. But actually then bringing on new business through that, it does take a little bit of time to adjust, obviously, and maintain and nurture those relationships as well, which is what you have to do essentially.
Mm-hmm. So do you find yourself kind of doing more business development here versus sourcing, or is it still quite balanced?
It's still really balanced. Whereas in the UK, if I'm comparing, obviously I built my desk from scratch there as well. So it's sort of starting from scratch here though. Mm-hmm. So it's different type of business development. It's a different type of recruitment, because when I was in the UK as a contract recruiter, things would come up from clients for projects which would need to be done very quickly. That's the nature of contract. Fast paced. You get a requirement. Half the time you don't have everything. Half the time you don't have a job spec, and you're just on the phone straight away to your network. Whereas here, business development is probably a 50, or maybe I would say a 70-30 split when it comes to business development and delivery. You've obviously got to keep that pipeline going, and because things are really slow out here as well, you want to maintain that pipeline in the background. Candidates are easier to find here on the perm side. Contracting not so much, because it's not as
fast paced, is it?
It's not, and it's not as mature as a contracting sort of market because of the visa requirements and things like that. It does exist, but it's not as prominent, especially in my market, as it was in the UK. So I would say it's probably a 70-30 split, based on the fact that candidates are easier to find. Business development is slightly more difficult than the candidate side of things here. But also people are willing to engage and willing to meet up with you and have those conversations.
Do you find that you kind of find yourself a lot more kind of going out to events and networking events, or like industry specific events out here? Because I feel like I just see them popping up all the time, for example, on LinkedIn, of my clients and my candidates who are in recruitment in Dubai, just constantly out and about, meeting people, networking. Do you find that here?
Yeah, 100%.
It's a lot more than the UK.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think in the UK, I probably count on my hand how many times I went to a networking event. Here, I could count on both hands how many I've been to this year alone. So it is much more of a networking environment, and it is exciting to meet people that way. So it's a bit more of for me especially, it's been a bit of a networking growth for me, because I hadn't really done as much networking before I came here. It was all very much Microsoft Teams, phone calls. You'd go to the odd event and maybe meet one or two people, but here you seem to get a lot of the same industry people in the same place at the same time. And I think that's because people work in the office, people like to go out for coffee, people like to go to these events to meet people, and because they are so industry specific, and Dubai is quite a small place, it's very accessible for people.
Yeah, and I feel like just even what we said before about how easy it is to make friends, I think it translates a little bit into the business world as well. Like I, for example, get so many referrals from you and from my clients and from my candidates. Constantly people are sending me candidates or introducing me to their their friends who run recruitment agencies, and that's kind of how I found it here, which is, whereas in the UK I kind of feel like there's a lot more gatekeeping when it comes to that, and people are a lot more open to kind of making these introductions and just helping each other out a bit more. I would say. I
think where the lifestyle is a bit happier here, and you've got the bright sunshine and you've got more of a positive, surrounding, that people are more positive. Whereas if we're comparing to maybe some other countries, and I can only go from the UK because that's the only other place I've lived, it can be very miserable. And that can reflect.
Number one reason I moved here.
Exactly. And I think that even the weather, I know if it's raining and I have had to commute from my house and get a train or drive into the city centre and then walk, and it's, not a nice environment to be in, you get into the office and you're not in a good mood.
Yeah, and also even the commute times, I think I found in London, I used to travel almost an hour to work every day. Right now it's a 19-minute drive. I get in the lift, get in my car, drive to the office, park outside, beautiful office. And I feel like that's, a similar commute for most people. I mean, you've got the commute of dreams.
I do, yes.
Not everyone gets to live next door to the office, but some of us, it's usually under 20 minutes, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think everybody I know pretty much, from my own candidates and clients to people I know who work in the recruitment industry, nobody travels more than 40 minutes to work unless they live in Abu Dhabi.
That's really unheard of, more than 40 minutes.
Yeah, which is really unheard of. And the majority I would say is 20 minutes to half an hour maximum.
Yeah.
And it really does make a difference. You can, even having the ability to wake up in the morning and go to the gym or go on a run, knowing that it's, apart from when we've had the floods, knowing that it's not going to be absolutely pouring down.
Yeah.
And you can actually get that bit of exercise out the way, or you can go for a coffee early in the morning before you get to the office and you're not running around scrambling trying to have breakfast. I think that that's a real positive to the lifestyle, and I think that's why a lot of people are happy here.
I think so, and I feel like people look up, as much as there's the part of Dubai where you do go out drinking a lot and you're partying, you're in West Palm Beach or whatever people are doing. At the same time, there's a big emphasis on everyone kind of tries to stay in shape. Obviously, we do live in our bikinis as girls, so we do our best to kind of go to the gym. And I've got lots of friends where instead of going out for drinks or whatever, which we still do, but we'll go and do a fitness class together, we'll do a Pilates class together, or we'll go for a walk at Kite Beach or something like this. And I feel like it's a lot more accessible here because, again, you don't have to travel for 10 hours to get somewhere. Like in the UK, or even if you're coming from separate sides of Dubai, there's always somewhere to go to meet up. Do you feel like it's kind of easier to try and stay in shape and kind of live healthy here?
Yeah, I do. I think that it all depends on what you're used to, right? If you've got a routine in the UK, then you'll probably be able to transition quite easily over here.
My routine went out the window when I moved here.
Yeah, and initially it is hard because of the temptation. But when you take a step back and you've done that, socializing, met your group of friends, time to get into routine now, 3 to 6 months in, or 3 to 6 weeks in realistically.
That's what we recommend.
Yeah,
3 weeks.
But not many people do it. You can actually take a step back and look and think, right, I haven't got as long of a commute to do. I can make time to go to a gym class, go to the gym, go on a run in the morning. The accessibility for healthy food as well is really good.
Oh my God, yeah.
And
it's so inexpensive as well
really
to order a healthy takeaway on Kareem.
I have found some of the best calorie counted and macro or whatever they are, nutritional takeaways. There's Chinese's that count the calories.
Oh my God, you need to send them to me.
Yeah, I know. I've got a list on my phone because they're so easy to...
Okay, we'll try and share the list and notes.
Yeah. Which takeaways, calorie count. But even so, when it comes to when you're walking around the malls and just see an advertisement out here, they do promote, you've got the events on as well, like Dubai, they have a health week as well, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's around October time, maybe.
I think so. It was when I first moved here, so it would have been
around that time. Yeah. And even to the Kareem bikes parked everywhere. So even if you don't want to walk, there's a bike there, so you don't have to get a taxi.
Oh yeah, you will not catch me dead on one of those.
I've been on them; they're actually really good. But it is, I think, Dubai is it accommodates to that lifestyle if you want it. If you don't, then there's a lot of temptation and there's a lot of unhealthy food as well. And
people do work late as well. I know people who literally all they do is work.
Yeah.
But at least you're able to kind of order the healthy option of food. You don't necessarily have to go for KFC or McDonald's or whatever unhealthy options you were going for back home. There's like my favorite food that I usually order to the office is a place called Training Day, and it's delicious. And I literally order it almost every single day, and it's so healthy, or at least it's healthier than the other alternatives.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, nobody cooks here. That's the one downside.
I've
started as well, and then I'll cook for 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks I won't.
Yeah, I think it all depends on your lifestyle as well, what your choices are. If you want to go out for after work drinks, and that's what you used to do in the UK, and you want to continue to do that, then obviously you might want to get a takeaway when you get in. You're not going to want to cook. But also there is that flexibility here. If you do want to live a healthy lifestyle, it's not impossible. It's the same as anywhere in the world, really. There's positives to it, there's negatives to it in terms of that side of things, and it's really down to the individual and how you want to utilize your time. And you know, on the weekends, do you want to go for a walk on Kite Beach or do you want to go for a brunch?
You know, I still haven't been to a proper brunch.
Have you not?
No, not once.
Why?
Well, I was at zero gravity the day I got here, but that I blamed that on my friends because I didn't know what it was. But apart from that, I've not done like a proper dressed up, like nice brunch yet.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to go.
I'm saving them for the summer though. I'm just like, there's going to be nothing else to do.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well for me. When the sun's out, I want to be in the sun. I don't want to be sat indoors at 2:00 on a Saturday for a brunch. As much as they're, you know, they're great and they're good fun.
Yeah, when I moved here, I think I was very aware that I've only got so much before it gets too hot.
Yeah.
So I think I picked a great time to move here because it was September and end of September. So I was just like, I'm going to have the longest possible time of like cool weather.
Yeah.
So I've literally like, I've kept saying to my friends, because they're always like, come here, come there. And I'm like, do you know what? No, I'm saving them for the summer. So you'll catch me at a brunch in the summer, probably next month when it gets too hot.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You definitely have to experience it. And they are amazing, but also they're not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And if they're not, there's so much more for people to do here as well. It's not just brunches, whether you like nice dinners or whether you like to go to, I don't know, activities. You've got Boom Battle Bar here now. You've got like Brass Monkey, all of those different things to do. You've got Global Village. Like there is literally so much to do here.
So much. But at the same time, during the week, 9:30, I'm in bed.
Yeah,
most of the time.
me too.
It's lovely.
I can't, like by the time it's 10:00, my eyes are shut.
Yeah, literally. But, you know, and then I'm up early, which I never used to be. I used to just wake up and go straight to work. Whereas here, I feel like I have a bit of a morning before I start working and I can go to the gym and I can have a nice breakfast at home, walk my dog, that kind of stuff. So it's a lot nicer, I feel like, introduction to the day as well.
I think
and sit in the sun a bit.
I think that's down to the weather as well.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
I think it's because in the UK we've got, or lots of places in Europe, and beyond, you know, you've got that dark morning which is gloomy. I remember I used to wake up and I would open my curtains and it would be dark. I'd be going to work and it was dark and it was raining and you hadn't even seen sunlight, and then you'd leave work and you hadn't even seen sunlight. It was awful, and I couldn't imagine doing that now.
Yeah, my last job, we didn't even have like outside windows. We had windows facing the inside of the building.
Oh no.
And you could kind of see outside through them. It was a lovely office. They're not there anymore actually, but yeah, no windows, so it was just sat in the dark all day basically with office lights.
Yeah, we used to my office was in the centre of Cardiff on the main street, St Mary Street, and you used to look down and you'd have all the boarded up pubs and whatever else, and yeah, it's just a grim sight. And now I look out onto the marina.
The view from your office, that's the nicest office in Dubai.
It's amazing.
100%, it's the best. I remember when I first got there, I was like, oh my god, that is amazing.
It really is.
So you touched on your last role in the UK. So how have you found actually looking for a job in Dubai when you were, you know, think about 1 year ago when you were interviewing for things, and you know, were you a bit humbled maybe when you were looking?
Yeah, I think for me, I was approached by Rec to Rec. Unfortunately, it wasn't you because you weren't actually here. But I had always dabbled with the idea of relocation to Dubai. It's the only place I'd ever think about moving to because of what it offers, the lifestyle, and obviously the tax-free earnings. It's a massive plus. So when I was approached, I had an initial conversation. And I think when you have an initial conversation, it goes for anybody looking to relocate. It's a discovery call.
Yeah.
You know, you can't make your decision off the back of that. But also, it's important that you go and then do your own research. You can't rely on the Rec to Rec or the recruitment consultant to tell you everything. And if you're applying directly, then you really need to do research, because obviously whoever you're dealing with internally won't have as much time as a Rec to Rec to actually go through every single detail, which you'll probably want to know. So when I was approached, I had the initial conversation, and then I kind of like had a little think about it. And then I met with a couple of companies, and I think when it comes to actually making your decision, it's hard to know because you're not here. And I did actually fly out here and meet with a couple of businesses. I came out here on a holiday to explore Dubai on my own. and think, you know, if I can't go on holiday there on my own, how am I going to live there on my own?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I did that in the February of 2023. And I think that's really, if you can do it, that's really important, because even though I've been to Dubai 5-6 times already, I wanted to see it from a living here perspective.
Did you stay in like an Airbnb instead of a nice hotel?
Yeah, I stayed in an Airbnb. I'd done an Airbnb once before, and then prior to that, I'd always done hotels. So I stayed in JLT, which is, you know, a very popular place to live. And then I used Kareem. I got to grips with all the apps and, you know, shopping in a local supermarket, doing that side of things to kind of understand what's it actually going to be like.
Yeah, that's so smart. I love that.
Yeah, and it was, do you know what? And that's what swayed my decision, because I'd had the chat with the Rec before, met a few businesses when I got out here, and you meet people. And obviously that's the most important thing, is the people from my perspective. Obviously job opportunity and career perspectives are really important too, but the people are who you're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis. So if you can do that, I'd really recommend it.
100%.
But if you can't, then it is really important to make sure that you're not just meeting one person from that business. I think that meeting at least 3 or 4 from the company, of whether that be the founders or CEOs, managing directors, and then whoever you're going to be reporting into.
Meet the team as
well.
The
team, exactly. And even people from another team, because that's where it's important too. Yeah. You know, as a business, is everybody collaborative? So I think that's really important to consider. But to be honest, my process was really... it was a nice experience. The Rec was there to help me with any questions I needed. And I think it's really important, you know, because there's a lot to take into consideration. If your company is flying you out here, if they're putting you up in accommodation, are you going to get, what type of insurance do you have? That's something to consider. How does the visa process work? One of the things that was missed out when I was relocating over here, which isn't a big deal, but it's just something to know. When you get to the airport, there is the option to go through the self-scan, or you go to the guy at the desk.
Nightmare. So I tell all my candidates to get a stamp.
Get the stamp, yeah.
But like, nobody knows about it, I
you
swear,
don't.
unless you've had the experience.
Yeah.
So I always tell everyone, just make sure you get the stamp. I know it's painful. You've been on a flight for 7 hours.
You just got to remember. So I think that's why it's quite handy to go through a Rec, because they can actually tell you about the good, the bad, the ugly, you know?
And, you know, we speak to candidates who've just relocated and been in their role for 3 months, for example, and they're just having a terrible experience, and they go back to the Rec that placed them, and all they have to say is, oh yeah, we did think you're not going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why did you place her there? Like, she's just, like, when you join a company, when you move here, and like your job is kind of like your anchor here, basically. That's like the consistent thing. You show up every day. You know, that's like the one thing you've had for sure. You don't know where you're going to live. You don't know who you're going to meet, who you're going to be friends with, what you're going to be doing, but like your job was kind of the set thing that you're moving to. And I was just like, why would you work with that company in the first place? Like, we don't work with any like bad companies, because I mean, we might not know yet, but you know, every company that we do work with, we meet with, we see their offices and everything, and you know, we might not get everything right, but if someone says, oh, I thought you're not going to enjoy this, that's a big red flag. I was like, okay.
I think that they're going through a Rec or having those conversations with the team internally and making sure that it is the right role is pivotal, because otherwise you're not going to know whether you're the right culture fit or whether it's going to be exactly suitable for you.
But also I find the companies here, like if you're looking for a job in London, for example, you can find 7 companies that are almost exactly the same and offer you the exact same thing, and they've got almost identical commission schemes, and you know, the teams kind of look the same, and it's all kind of, so you can just make your decision based off of the salary or the vibe or whatever. Whereas here, I feel like every company is so different. Like one company's focusing mostly on recruiting for Saudi, one's tech, another one does a bit of Europe as well, and then they do more contract and they do more perm, and then there's companies that are focusing on finance a bit more, or digital, or all this, and then there's all these like little things that make them so different. So sometimes when I get candidates who end up with like 2 or 3 offers, they don't know what to do because the offering's so different. So then people sometimes move here and then they end up moving after a few months because they're like, well, I like these people as well, so I'm going to give that a go, and like this didn't work out, that sounds better. And people do keep in touch as well. So it's very different. It's like a village in Dubai in recruitment.
Yeah, it is. And I think when it comes to the recruitment businesses here as well, they are all so unique. And when you look at the UK and the amount of companies there, a lot of the time, especially with the big players, somebody will know somebody who's worked there or who can give a bit of a, especially if it's a market competitor. You know, I knew my competitors in the UK. I knew which businesses had different reputations, and the same for any sort of market. You would kind of be able to get a impartial view or somebody's sort of advice on whether that would suit you or not, based on what you're looking for. And I think that it all depends on what you are looking for here, because you're not going to be able to go for 3 companies, like you said, exactly the same and just go off the basis of which one's vibe feels right and which one's salary is the best. It is a case of which business actually suits my needs, my career goals, my cultural sort of stances and things like that. It's not just a case of there's 3 big players in the market and you've got to choose one of them. It's not like that. It is really a case of who do you buy into, who suits your skill set, who does contract perm, your market, who's going to give you a platform. There's loads of things to consider, and it's not really black and white. It can be a little bit grey, I think.
Yeah, and I guess for you as well, because you were managing a team back in the UK, weren't you? And then you kind of came here into, you know, a recruiter role again. So I guess, was that important for you to kind of have maybe the possibility of growing out a team, growing a desk again in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was in the UK, obviously, like you said, as managing a team, I had an existing contract book. So leaving that behind isn't easy. No, it's not. You know,
painful.
You're walking away and you're basically jumping into the lion's den, really, because you're starting from scratch. And in that sense as well, you have to prove yourself. So I'm glad, to be honest, what I did was take a step back to essentially take a step forward. And I'm still on that trajectory to taking my step forward. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. But I think it is really important that when you do come over here, you realise that you are going to be, unless you can physically lift your desk up and move it over here, I do think that it is wise to look at the bigger picture and have less pressure initially. And look at the option to potentially take a step back to gain that experience in the GCC or whichever market you're going to be doing, especially for me transitioning from contract to perm in a new region. It really helped knowing that, you know, if I came in at the level I was, I'd have higher targets, more pressure, and realistically the salary bandings, from what I know, and you'll know better than this and be able to advise more, but the jump from one level to another, the salary bandings aren't a massive difference. So for the sake of, you know, all that pressure from moving and trying to navigate your way through meeting people and settling in and having a new lifestyle and finding somewhere to live, you don't want, obviously work is always going to be pressure, but you don't want additional pressure from work when you could kind of minimalise it a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it was a very smart thing to do, what you've done, and kind of, you know, not putting that big target on your back with having all the other things that you're dealing with when moving to a new place. I think it's a really smart thing to do. And at the end of the day, like, we're in it for the commission as recruiters. We're not in it for, you know, an extra £200 on our basic salary every month.
Exactly.
Because that's what it's going to be. It would be like £200 or £400 a month. It is tax free, which helps. Just go to one less brunch, go to the gym instead.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to actually making that decision too, as long as you've got a career pathway in front of you, what stops you? If you back yourself and you know you're a good recruiter, if you have a, you know, if you have a discussion with your potential employer, okay, what would my objectives be to get to the next step? And if you know that, then it makes it easier. You can see it in the distance rather than thinking, oh, I'm taking a step down. When's my step forward? If you have that in front of you, well, realistically, if you work hard and you put the effort in, you're going to get there. It'll just take a little bit of time, but you're doing it for the right reason. And that's another thing as well. I think you have to move here for the right reason. If you are coming over here just for the money and the tax-free or the lifestyle, I think that is the wrong reason. It has to be a collective of everything. You know, I think that it's really important for people to look at this as a long-term overall move.
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of people, they kind of say, when I initially speak to them, they're just like, oh yeah, I'd love to live in Dubai for like a couple years, stay here for a couple years, you know, make some money, go back home. And then as soon as they get there and it hits like 4 weeks, they're like, I'm never leaving Dubai.
Yeah, of course. And it's okay if obviously, you know, people come here for 3, 4, 5 years, but if you know you only want to do a year, then a business isn't going to really want to invest in you.
Yeah.
And that's the same across the board. You know, I have candidates who reach out to me saying they want to relocate here, just as I'm sure you do. And I have to have quite a frank conversation when it comes to, okay, what research have you done? Do you understand sort of the way the market is, how difficult it is to actually get a job here? That sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward. And I even relate to my scenario. You know, I explain that it's not in just the recruitment industry, it's in a lot of industries, because
every industry, half the world is trying to move to Dubai.
Exactly.
People from the UK, Ireland, the whole of Europe, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, US, Canada, like everyone is trying to live here.
Yeah. And
literally everybody.
I know. I can see why.
I can see why.
Yeah. But it is important to look at that from a positive point. You know, you're taking a step back to take a step forward. You're not going to be stagnant. You're not going to just stay in the same place.
And just to give, I guess, another example, my friend, she literally moved here. She's a legal PA, basically. She was a legal PA back in the UK. Took a step down in title to move to Dubai, literally just over a year ago. I think her 1 year was in March. And she just bought a house.
Oh my gosh.
She just bought a house.
That's amazing.
She's getting promoted. She just bought a place. She literally just moved in last Friday. And we were having prosecco in her new apartment, like brand new apartment, 2 bedrooms, like got a mortgage, everything. And she's about to get promoted, get a salary increase and everything. So it is worth it. Like if you see it in for the long term, and you actually, because the tax-free earnings do make a massive difference as well. Like I think people don't realize, and they kind of calculate their salaries based on kind of what they're getting before tax in the UK, and so you're getting, I don't know, 60k before tax. You can get a lot less here and live a much better life when it comes to like rent prices and the quality of life and the quality of what you're getting. You're making so much more money and you'll be so much happier, and I think you can't put a price on happiness.
You can't. And I think as well, it's really important when you are doing your research and looking at these things when it comes to finances and opportunities that are being presented to you. Don't work it out based on your salary before tax.
Yeah.
Look at what it would take for you to earn your tax-free salary in Dubai, in the UK, and that will shock you.
Yeah.
Because if you look at somebody who is earning, I don't know, 32 grand in the UK, you'd have to be, to get that after tax, you'd have to be on like 60. So you're getting, even though sometimes you take a pay cut, essentially, you're actually taking a pay rise because of the tax-free potential.
And things are cheaper. Like we were chatting earlier about kind of what we pay for rent, both of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you live in the marina, like where everyone wants to live. I live in Creek Harbour, like beautiful places. And actually when you work it out monthly and bills and all that stuff, it's cheaper than getting probably like a pretty mouldy studio somewhere in South London.
Yeah.
And you get a pool and you've got a gym in your building and you're like right in the heart of the marina, 5 minutes from work. You don't need to drive. I live in this beautiful community. We've got this like lagoon pool and a beach and everything. Like couldn't even dream of a place like this.
No. And
it costs me what, like, I don't know, £1,400 a month.
Yeah.
Like you can't get anything for that. You can barely get a room in London for that.
Well, I always compare it to my brother. He worked in London for about 4 or 5 years. And when he was there, he'd have to commute every day for an hour. He was paying probably like what I'm paying now in rent for a room in London. And you're just out the house all day and in dark and dingy London, and it wasn't even a very nice area. So although people think it's expensive,
one thing we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about the safety in Dubai.
Oh yes,
how safe it is.
Yeah, no, we need to go on to that.
Yeah.
But when I look at what I've got versus what you can get in the UK, it is completely different. You can't even
compare it. You can't.
And the other thing I get as well is 24-hour security, talking about safety. So, you know, I feel, especially as a female, when you compare it to me walking from my office to my car, which I used to park just outside of Cardiff Centre, it would be a 20-minute walk. I used to always be looking over my shoulder.
I lived in South London.
Yeah, well, that's even, we won't talk about that.
I lived in South London. It was fine. Like, nothing ever happened, but it could have.
Yeah.
And here, like, it doesn't even cross your mind. Like, I've left things, you can leave things on the table, walk away. Like, you can, I don't know, I left my bag on the beach near my house the other day for like 4 hours just to keep my little son for the rest of the day because my friend was coming, and no one touched it. Like,
Yeah.
no one will ever touch anything. No one will talk to you. It's so safe. There's CCTV everywhere, security. Like, it's just, I think maybe men don't appreciate as much, but
No, they
us
don't,
girls, we really, really do. It makes such a difference to just feel safe and not have to worry about anything. But you do get really used to it. And then whenever I go abroad, I'm walking around with my phone in my hand, like it's not going to get snatched out, which it had happened twice in London. But it's just nice to be able to live without having to worry about your safety.
Obviously, you don't want to be complacent ever, but you do feel so much more secure, and you don't feel like, as well, when you're walking down the streets, it's just pleasant. You know, you haven't got the sort of crises that we have in the UK and the exposure to boarded up buildings and issues on the streets and things like that. It's just so much nicer in that sense. But also then when you go back to the UK, you realise that, oh gosh, yes, this is the real world.
I've not been back to the UK yet, but it's gonna be an adjustment probably.
I went back in March and it was a shock to the system.
Yeah.
But I think I needed it to then
appreciate it.
Be grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that whenever I go on holiday. So I've been to Sri Lanka, been to the Philippines, loved it both. But the convenience and the comfortability of living in Dubai, how convenient, how easy everything is, you literally end up missing home after like 3 days of being away. Just like, it's great, I love it, but I want my water to be delivered right to my door. I don't want to go to the shop.
I know. People can't believe it when I say I get water in like 15 minutes. And you can get on, have you got new minutes?
Of course.
Yeah. It's just, it's so
Everything,
easy.
anything.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Love it. Like,
if you want a massage, if you want your eyelashes done, if you want, I don't know.
At any time of day as well. Like, everything's open till late. That's
Petrol.
another thing. That's another thing for me when I moved here, and like, you know, on Sundays in the UK, supermarkets close at 4.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like right now, you just don't even have
Unheard
to
of,
think
yeah.
about it. You can just go buy anything you want any time of day. I mean, I don't really leave the house past 10 o'clock, but I'm sure if I did, there would be stuff to do.
It prevents that panic rush as well, doesn't it? Because in the UK, as soon as 4 o'clock comes, everybody's running to Tesco or Asda or whatever to pick up their last minute bits because it doesn't open tomorrow, obviously.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, it's crazy. But yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been lovely having you. I think, I think we gave a really good overview of what it's like, kind of what your first year in Dubai would look like, what the job search would look like. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, pleasure.